What's up, guys? Content Savant here with a controversial take on a post that I know that we have all seen more than once in the Reverend Insanity subreddit. That's right, the zombie arc. As much as I love this novel and want to promote it as much as possible to prospective readers, the fact that this many people complain about the zombie arc must mean something about a change in the quality of writing, right? I want to investigate the true reason about this arc and come to a logical conclusion about what this says about the novel and answer the question, what the heck is up with this arc? What happened? Why does it turn off so many people? Before I get into it though, please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. The last time I made a video about Reverend Insanity, I just slapped some gameplay on top of my narration, which admittedly was pretty lazy. But this time, I'm actually going to put in extra time into creating a compelling visual aspect of this video because I really want people to consider what I have to say. So if you appreciate the extra effort, please hit the like button so my video will be promoted to more people. With that out of the way, let's get it. Why do so many people hate the zombie arc? This arc is much more than what you think. There's so much to unpack here, as anybody who has read the novel for quite a while afterwards should be able to see that in hindsight, this arc marks quite a bit of changes for the rest of the novel. Let's break them down and take them as they come. Differences between mortal and immortal cultivation. This isn't something that new readers will be able to know as soon as Fang Yuan permanently turns into a zombie in the 88 True Yang building. But with our hindsight, we know that immortal cultivation is much tougher. It can't be sped up with enough wealth alone. If you really want to power level your way through immortal cultivation, you would still need wealth, but also time path experts to speed up the rate of time in your immortal aperture, and at least rank 7 assistant to consecutively pass your calamities and tribulations. The readers of this arc don't know it yet, but lone cultivators are severely disadvantaged when it comes to immortal cultivation. So, they don't know that Fang Yuan, their favorite traveling demonic lone cultivator, will suddenly have his own human resources needs. They don't know about the alliances that he'll inevitably have to make. They don't know about the somewhat essential need for your own super force once you hit rank 8 to delegate menial tasks to. And you know, I think that this arc is fine where Fang Yuan eventually ends up, and his story in reviving and ranking up from 6 to 7 to 8. But if readers were to expect what they experienced in the mortal cultivation arcs, these expectations will be betrayed, for better or for worse. Let me explain. One of the reasons we fell in love with Fang Yuan was his defiance and anti-societal stances. In short, his demonic acts. When they were on a much smaller scale, Fang Yuan's demonic acts are described in detail for shock value. Think back to Fang Yuan as a rank 1 goo master who killed the mortal and chopped up his body at the intense shock of the other mortals. Think back to his epic soliloquies about nature, lack of fairness, and the equality of peasants and nobles in the face of death. In chapter 369, Fang Yuan says, and I quote, "Since I started walking on the demonic path, I have never feared offending others. As long as I continue to get stronger, what is revenge? If 10 people want revenge, I will kill 10. If 100 people want revenge, I will kill 100. If the whole world wants revenge, then I shall exterminate the whole world. If someone succeeds in taking revenge against me, that will mean that I am not strong enough, and that I didn't try hard enough, and that I neglected my cultivation. If that were to be the case, then I deserve to die." This epic monologue is one example of many in the earlier arcs about the brutality of the world and the passion of the demonic path. It's interesting. It's so meaningful and well descriptive that you can understand and envision his meaning so clearly. But do we see the same types of philosophies after chapter 1000? We see more of Fang Yuan's life views, but it isn't the essence of the demonic path that we got in the mortal arcs of the novel. Cool factor. Fang Yuan was super cool during the mortal arcs because he knew everything there was to know about mortal society and cultivation. I sincerely believe he took pleasure in his cultivation from rank 1 to rank 5 since his rebirth. His subtle smug attitude in scheming was practically too easy for him. All along, it was just a game, and he enjoyed playing it. I think this is evidenced by some certain moments in the novels, such as when he subtly winked at Binding Bing. I think it was a playful moment of his mischievous nature, making an example of his chaotic capabilities. Allow me to read you another passage from earlier in the novel to illustrate what I'm talking about. Chapter 227, while Fang and Bai were escaping Baigu Mountain on the Footless Bird, an intense explosion occurred. Bai Jianwen knew he could not match up to Fang and Bai. Thus, he chose to self-detonate. The explosion in flames engulfed the Footless Bird. Thankfully, the Footless Bird was made of white bones. Even its wings were like pieces of thin bone pieces. The fire didn't cause much damage. The truer danger was the impact caused by the explosion. Footless Bird's body was full of cracks, and it lost its balance, plummeting to the ground. After descending for a distance, under Fang Yuan's manipulation, it regained its balance and flew far away. Fang Yuan, Binding Bing screamed. Earlier, Fang Yuan lent her the canopy goo. She had the goo worm to protect her, but Fang Yuan did not. When the explosion occurred, Fang Yuan had no time to activate a defensive goo. When the Footless Bird rushed out of the flame, Fang Yuan's body was burning in the fire. The intense winds caused the fire to burn even more greatly. Even the earth-hearing eargrass in his right ear was burnt, but his expression was cold like steel, like he was not suffering any injuries at all. After Footless Bird regained its stability, Fang Yuan took out 2 seed of flour and poured the milk spring over his head. The fire was extinguished, but his skin was mostly burnt and his face disfigured. He looked extremely tragic. Binding Bing tried to speak, but could not say anything. Fang Yuan, however, smirked and laughed. I like the Footless Bird. Do you know why? His grotesque figure smiled. The sight was horrifying. Why? Because it has no legs, only wings. Thus, it has no choice but to fly. And when it lands, that signifies its destruction. Betting it all in one chance. Fly or die. Binding Bing's blue pupils dilated, shining with brilliance. The winds blew on her face, causing her silver hair to flutter. Binding Bing's lips also curled up. Then let us fly up into the sky. Footless Bird flew into the sky, becoming a dot in the horizon before eventually vanishing. Like my other examples, these are extremely meaningful and touching scenes that demonstrate Fang Yuan's nature in the world, and to put it bluntly, are really cool. They're very cool ways to describe exactly how callous and focused Fang Yuan as a character is. That's not to say that there aren't future scenes like this. We are all aware of the Reverse Flow River arc, Fang Yuan's perseverance. But at that point, we are so deep in the magic of the novel, explaining that scene too quickly would be, Fang Yuan walked up a river that other people couldn't. But explaining the Footless Bird scene would be, Fang Yuan was lit on fire and smiled in spite of it. He compared his path to that of the Footless Bird, flying into the sky or facing death. Immortal Cultivation, Fang Yuan's first major setback. As I said before, Fang Yuan cultivated the boring way all the way up to rank 6 in his previous life. So naturally, his second time through allows him to enjoy the process, savor the moments, and be cool. However, with his ascension to rank 6, Fang Yuan finds himself, more or less, in the same situation as his first life. Fang Yuan isn't anywhere close to the apex of immortal society in terms of his experience. His wicked preparedness and cool style from the mortal arc seemingly disappears, as in his previous life, he was only ever a rank 6 Bloodpath Grandmaster. With that amount of experience, he could easily dominate and manipulate the mortal world as a mortal, But the zombie arc sets the precedent that this will not be the case for the immortal world. He would easily be exterminated by more powerful immortals, even in his previous peak condition. Loss of omniscience. Due to the ink effect, also known as the butterfly effect, Fang Yuan has to learn and improvise, which is not as cool as a man with a plan. In the Mortal arcs, Fang Yuan as a character felt invincible. Of course he wasn't, he had to rebirth several times using the Spring Autumn Cicada, but more or less, he was invincible due to his ability to plan around future events and prepare to make the most of his benefits. However, with the thwarting of Spectral Soul in obtaining the sovereign immortal body, Fang Yuan has lost most of his ability to predict fortuitous encounters. He's hunted by Heavenly Court way earlier than most rank 6 demonic path immortals would be, and he's changed the future so drastically and has his own unique challenges with his new body and cultivation prospects that he has to improvise. As a character, this is leading up to the development of his ability to change plans and improvise, which I think is overall healthy for keeping the novel fresh, but again, this isn't something that zombie arc readers will know immediately. This is continuous throughout the rest of the novel. Fang Yuan can no longer plan from the shadows. He almost instantly becomes public enemy number 1 with the collapse of 88 True Yang building, and in addition, becomes the working chess piece of several immortal venerables. He isn't just a man versus the world anymore. It's much more complex than that, and the zombie arc is the calm before the storm. Change in character. Now, let me preface this that from this point forward, this is purely just a personal fan theory, but I think it has some merit. Fang Yuan grows a lot in these arcs. As he achieves Grandmaster and various other paths, it's possible that his life views are changing with him. In my opinion, he's not as demonic as he once was. More time is spent on exposition of Fang Yuan's past, and events are set up in a way that show the futility of trying to remain just in this unjust world. Fang Yuan seems to indulge in his slaughter in Book 1. Not that he enjoys the killing directly, but his killing is an affirmation of his worldview, which indirectly is framed as satisfying from the way that it's described. But in the Immortal arcs, his killing seems simply to serve a purpose, which is survival. From the zombie arc onward, it is nothing but a death race for survival for him. And I'm sure that this is in part his subconscious knowledge of his own safety, knowing that he's in complete control in almost every single mortal scenario, even as a mortal, but pretty much his entire immortal cultivation being hunted and on the verge of extermination, he can only focus on his goals and his own survival, and has no time to truly process and reflect on any of the events that happened afterwards due to the roller coaster pace of the events that occur post-revival. Here's where a little bit of my non-canon fan theory comes in. His goals and determination never waver, of course. His non-existent bottom line in pursuit of his goal of eternal life is consistent, but perhaps his morals and worldview has changed just a little bit as well. Fang Yuan has lived for 500 years previously. This is indisputable, and his travel back to his childhood in Guyue Mountain allowed him to reflect on his experiences and come to something like a human path true meaning of his vast life experiences. But due to the rebirth advantage he created for himself, he ascends to Immortal extremely early and also gets involved in a reviving Spectral Soul Demon Venerable in Heavenly Court, and reaps rewards that his past self would never be able to even conceive. Following this, Fang Yuan's horizons are expanded, he learns more about the cultivation world, and he comes to a better understanding of the capabilities and limits of Venerables. Like, do you think in his first life, Fang Yuan as a demonic Bloodpath Grandmaster had as deep of an understanding of the capabilities of a rank 9 that he does now? Probably not. In addition to becoming much closer to the Venerables in this lifetime, he surpasses his previous understanding of the universe itself, the Great Tao, by achieving Great Grandmaster attainment level for the very first time, and later, Quasi-Supreme Grandmaster. We know that all paths end up to the same place, the Great Tao. the rules of existence in the universe in total. All paths, when maxed out to Supreme Grandmaster, have nearly identical abilities, and thus, it's my theory that it's very likely that Fang Yuan himself goes through personal development as he understands more and more about the Great Tao. He's also lived out multiple lifetimes in various dream realms, and while I'm not saying that he lost himself or he lost his demonic nature or that he lacked life experience in multiple perspectives from his original 500 years of experience, I am saying that with a much more fundamental understanding of Gu World human history, the Venerables, and the Great Tao itself through his near-perfect understanding of the universe he exists in, he cares less and less for the brutality of the demonic path. He no longer romanticizes the demonic path and its brutality towards the self. With being one step away from Supreme Grandmaster in two different paths, he transcends mortal and low-level immortal concepts such as right and wrong to someone at nearly the pinnacle of the world. There is only heaven and earth, no right and wrong. I'm not saying that Fang Yuan is suddenly neutral and not demonic. He still is, obviously. But I think that demonstrably there is a noticeable shift in tone in the Immortal arcs, and that the zombie arc that so many people complain about is just the start of it all. Without a doubt, I can say at least that the zombie arc is a transitional state that the readers most likely have no way to prepare for. They just have to read it and accept it for what it is, which again, if you do read through it, it's good in its own way, but I hope that with my use of past quotes and passages of the novel, I can remind the fan base that the mortal and immortal arcs are different. The zombie arc is just the departure from the form that the reader has come to know and love. What really hooked us in this story was his brutal and ruthless nature as someone who commits evil shamelessly. And I think the reason a lot of readers get hung up on the zombie arc is because there's a shift in that tone, and a loss of the intense brutal killing, in addition to the understanding that righteous path forces are knowing hypocrites. There just isn't any emotional tension to the conflict because it's just bad people fighting worse people. The righteous path members are evil, and so are the demonic. It's all bunk anyway, and so there's no emotional weight to the conflict. Fang Yuan is just surviving. And I think that the RI community should admit that the Mortal Cultivation arcs were just too perfect in development and pacing, especially with the way that it quickly hooks readers, and the stories it can tell in such a short amount of time. I like the world building in the later arcs, and I like the systems, and I like the plot, but it reaches such a grand scale that it's hard for my mortal brain to emotionally weigh all of it equivalently. For example, Fang Yuan's clone in Literature Grotto Heaven could be its own 200-chapter novel, and I know that Gu Junren would execute it very well. It's a very beautiful type of story where people get more powerful by composing poems. But really, with the myriad of characters, I can't be emotionally invested in all of them. Not like when it was just Fang Yuan and Binding Bing in the Three Kings arc and the Shangklang arc. Two crazy people just traveling the vast world and seeing what's really out there. In Reverend Insanity, Immortal Ascension really zooms out the world and lets the characters and also the readers see the entire bigger picture. But when you zoom so far out, you lose some intimate detail, and I think it changes the experience. The Immortal arcs are good. The story is still interesting and pleasurable to read, but it's undeniable that the scope has shifted and the concepts and tone has evolved over time, and I hope that the community can consider these points the next time a newcomer is feeling unsure about whether to continue reading instead of just telling them to continue reading. Thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I worked very hard on this video because this idea has been eating away at me for a while now. One last friendly reminder to like the video because it's free and it helps bring more viewers to my channel. And if you'd like to support my channel in a way that's not just free, my Bitcoin wallet address is down below in the description. But if you don't want to donate, that's cool too. I have a Minecraft server that I play on with my friends from time to time, and that's down below as well. Thanks everybody who has supported me along the way. I am the Content Savant. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.